Hi, I'm Hector Garcia, CPA and Advanced QuickBooks Pro Advisor. And I work with a lot of different type of companies. But one of the industries we support heavily is the field service industry. When we think of field service, we think of contractors, construction companies, and any type of business that sends their employees or a significant amount of resources on site to perform the work outside of their own home office. So in field service management, we think about certain pain points that are significant, such as employee time tracking, understanding where these employees are and where these resources are allocated, scheduling these jobs and matching them against completion dates, job costing to understand the cost of labor, materials, and all these other resources allocated in a job by job basis, estimating the jobs for the customers, and creating these contracts for the customers to sign on the road or to sign off completion dates, and in some cases, the logistics around scheduling the resources and the fleet. Now let's go into QuickBooks Online and let's search for applications that will be optimal to solving some of these pain points. We're going to go ahead and click on the Apps button on the left navigation bar. And on the search box, we can search things like scheduling. And you will see a couple of apps that show up under scheduling. You can search things like job costing. And you will see some of the apps that show up under that search query. You can search time tracking. And you will see some of those apps. Now, it may be easier, instead of searching by function, to search by category. So we can click on the Browse Category button. We can actually search down to Field Service Management. So if you look at Field Service Management, Estimating and Bidding, Time Tracking, Project Management, those are typically the categories that help solve some of the pain points for these industries. We're going to go ahead and click on Field Service Management. And let's take a look at the two apps that we're going to review in this video. One of it is going to be Jobber. So we're going to review Jobber, mostly for landscaping, appliance repair, any companies that sends field technicians on site to customers' homes or commercial locations to perform some sort of technical or repair job. And the other app is going to be under the project management category, which is Noify, which is a perfect app for contractors and construction companies that want to track the construction activities with QuickBooks Online combined. For this demo of Jobber, which will take about 12 minutes, we're first going to do an app setup, overview, and sync settings. Then we're going to talk about managing clients and properties. Then we'll move on to managing work, such as entering new project requests and quotes. Then we'll turn some of those quotes into jobs and ultimately into invoices. We'll move on to doing some time tracking, then receiving a customer payment, and then getting a bird's eye view with the calendar view to manage our schedule. Finally, we'll talk about how Jobber and QuickBooks Online work together, and we'll see some examples of the Jobber transactions inside QuickBooks Online. It is important to note that we're activating this new application from the end user or client's perspective. If you're an accounting professional and you want to activate a new application, you may need to log in with administrative access to be able to activate a new app to a company file. Let's go ahead and click on Jobber, and we're going to click on Get App Now. Once we set up Jobber and connect it to QuickBooks, a couple of things that you need to know. On the left navigation bar, you're going to see the dashboard, you're going to see the calendar view, you're going to see the client list, and there also is this concept of properties, which we'll talk about briefly. Then we'll have work, which are basically the jobs. We'll have management, which is mostly for settings, and the timesheet section. On the top right, we're going to see the QuickBooks logo, and we can click on Sync and Settings. And we can check that our Jobber is fully connected to QuickBooks. Now, one really important piece is the preference. Inside Jobber, you can actually choose whether or not you want to sync customers, products and services, invoices, and timesheets. In other words, you can choose to use Jobber as a completely separate application that doesn't talk to your accounting system, or you can choose to enable all these features and essentially use Jobber to create your jobs, create your invoices, and then you'll only be using QuickBooks mostly for the banking, the expense management, on the accounting side. Now, let's start by going into clients and managing our clients. So here in the clients section, I'm going to go ahead and click on clients. We're going to see a list of customers that we also have inside QuickBooks Online that were synced with Jobber. On top of the QuickBooks sync, I can also import my client list from Excel or any other type of client list I may already have. And I can create new clients simply by clicking on the new client button on the top right. I'm going to create a new client. And once I'm done entering the information, I'll go ahead and click on create client. And you will see a new client. I'm going to go back and click on the client section, and we're going to see all of our 3 clients. If we switch over into QuickBooks, click on the sales section and customer section, we will see the new client that was created from Jobber. Now, Jobber also has this concept of properties. Properties would be best known as the jobs or locations within the clients that we're managing. Jobber is very property driven, not so much client driven, because it's making the assumption that most of the work is being done at a physical location. And Jobber really tries to solve a lot of the logistics and scheduling issues having to do with these type of companies. So creating these properties and these locations are very centric to the whole Jobber setup. So we're going to click on properties. And notice that the one customer that we created has a default property created. We're going to go ahead and click on new property. We're going to select the customer associated with that property. And then we're going to type an address and click on create property. Perfect. We see the client's name and the property name. If I click back into clients, I can see all of my active clients. And if I click on properties, I will see all the properties attached to the active client. Now let's move on to work. I'm going to go ahead and click on work. In the world of work, we're going to have a couple of things. We're going to have requests, quotes, jobs, invoices, and expenses. I'm going to start with requests. The best way to think of a request, this would be an inquiry from new potential client. So somebody says that they want you to go check out the property so you can quote a job. Best thing to do is to start with a request. I'm going to go ahead and click on request. I will click on client name, and I can either create a new client or use an existing client that I may have on my database. I'm going to go ahead and select an existing client. You will notice that automatically the property, the default property, will be populated. If you have multiple properties, you will have the option to change it and choose the correct one. With the request title, I'm going to go ahead and put that they want a quote to redo the entire backyard. So we just give that a title. Notice that there's an option that says on-site assessment required that allows me to tell the software to go ahead and schedule maybe an hour or 2, whatever it takes for one of my estimators to go on site. So I'm going to go ahead and click on, and then I'm going to go ahead and schedule it. So I'll select some date, I'll select the time, and then under team, I'll assign the team member. Right now I only have one team member. I'm going to go ahead and select that one. Then I can choose whether or not I want the team member to receive an email reminding them of that assessment that we have scheduled, and or we can also add an additional reminder if we wanted to. We can scroll down under internal notes and add any notes we want, any specific notes that are pertinent to the job. You also have the ability to drag and drop any files, pictures, files that you may have in your computer that are pertinent to the job, so that would be very useful. So at this point, we usually don't really link the job to a quote or an invoice or anything like that because it's actually a brand new request. So we're going to keep working through the workflow of this one, and we're going to go ahead and click on Save Requests. Once a request is completed, it goes into your database of permanent requests. If I click on Request again, I'm going to see the one request that is sitting there in my list. So let's now assume that we went on site, we quoted a job, and we're going to go ahead and close the request and turn that into a quote. So we're going to go ahead and click on the request. We could scroll down and add some additional notes, pictures, whatever we want. And then we're going to click on Actions, Convert to Quote. All the information from the job translates over to the quote. We can add the description. We rate the opportunity to just kind of give it a priority. So let's say we're going to give it 5 stars because we're pretty sure the customer is going to say yes. Then we're going to scroll down and select the service that we're going to provide. So let's say, for example, I'm quoting this customer 8 hours at $150 an hour, and there it is, $1,200. We add our notes, we can scroll down and click on Save Quote. After that's done, we can either print the quote, save it as a PDF, or email it to our client. One of the great things about this app is if you're using a tablet and you're on site with your clients, you can actually collect a signature approval for these quotes right on site, and your client can sign and can even get an email acknowledgement that they have approved the job. So once the quote is in approved status, we can simply just convert this into a job so we can schedule it. So we're going to go ahead and click on Convert to Job. At this point, we can choose whether it's a one-off job or a recurring job for those monthly contracts that some of these companies do. I'm going to go ahead and schedule it as a one-time job and assign it to a team member. Scroll down and click Save Job. Now we have it on the list of active jobs. I'm going to go back and click on Work, and we can see a dashboard of everything that's going on, right? We can see how many jobs are active and what the next visit is for those active jobs. We can see if there's any open invoices. We can see if there are any jobs that have been completed that have not been invoiced yet, and any jobs that have been put on hold for one reason or another. We're going to go back into jobs. We're going to select this active job. Let's say we completed the job, but we had some changes in the job. So we're going to click on the items and we can actually modify it. And let's say it took us an extra hour and the customer is okay with paying that. So we can actually modify that even if the job goes under or over the original estimate. So we'll click on Save. Then we'll scroll up, click on Actions, collect the client's signature that the job was completed. And at that point, click on Actions and close the job. Once the job is being closed, we can complete the visit, hit on Close Job. And then finally, the job goes into the requiring invoicing status, letting you know that because you completed the job, you probably should invoice your client. So we're going to go ahead and click on Generate Invoice. We could add some additional notes if we wanted to, and then click on Save an Invoice. And at that point, we can choose to print it or email it to our client. Some of the other things that we can do with Jobber is time tracking. I'm going to go ahead and click on Timesheet on the left-hand side, and we can either do it for a particular week or a particular day. I'll select my start time, my end time, and click on Save. After all the team members have done their timesheets, we can click on Management, click on Approve Timesheets. You will see all the time entries for every single employee. Then we can click on Approve, and that timesheet entry will be sent into QuickBooks. Let's move on to receiving payments. So we're going to go back into Clients. We're going to select our customer that we have an open balance for. Notice that the invoice is under awaiting payment status. We can click on that invoice and click on Collect Payment. Select the method in which the customer has paid us. Change the amount if they partially paid us. That's also pretty common. Select the date of the payment. And then we'll click on Save. We can see the history of our invoice and a partial payment. So let's move on to the calendar view. We're going to go ahead and click on Week. We can get to see exactly how we have our week scheduled. And this will be based on team members. So if we had multiple team members, multiple trucks, multiple fleets, you're going to see all the scheduling for across all your team members. And you can also filter the ones that you want to see and the ones you don't want to see. Another feature that I like is we can click on Filters, Customize Calendar Colors, and we can actually color code a different color to a different team member. So for example, we're going to make Carlos this dark blue, and we're going to make Hector pink. So we'll click OK. We go back to our calendar, and we'll know exactly who's scheduled for each job. Okay, let's move on to QuickBooks Online to see exactly how the workflow between Jobber and QuickBooks Online works. We're going to click on the Sales section, Customers. And we're going to notice that we have one customer here with an open balance. If we actually click on that customer and we look at the transactions, we can click on Invoice, and we can see the exact same invoice that we created in Jobber, all transferred into QuickBooks. And we can also see the partial payment. We click on Payment. We can see the $750 partial payment that was received in Jobber. So in a nutshell, you really don't have to be creating invoices or payments in QuickBooks Online if you're using Jobber to manage all your job, quotes, invoicing, and payments from your customers. Also, if we go to our timesheets, we're going to click on Weekly Timesheet. We're going to select our employee. We're going to notice that the information from the timesheet in Jobber also gets transferred into QuickBooks. So if you use QuickBooks Payroll, you'll be able to track time from your field people in Jobber, transfer into QuickBooks, and then use the QuickBooks Payroll module to complete your payroll. In a nutshell, Jobber is going to be a great app for any companies that do in-home services or on-site services in commercial locations where they have a fleet, employees, resources being deployed, and they want to be able to schedule their jobs, track their time, invoice them, get signatures on site, and remind all their team members of their scheduling. Okay, let's talk about Knowify. Knowify for Contractors is an app that you can add to QuickBooks Online in order to manage your entire contractor or construction type business. This demo of Knowify will take about 15 minutes. First, we'll talk about the setup and general overview. Then we'll discuss managing contracts and jobs. Then we'll discuss creating a bid or an estimate for a customer. We'll talk about time tracking. We'll track some purchase orders and vendor bills. We'll also track open invoices and customer payments. Then we'll look at job scheduling. And finally, we'll look at the workflow between Knowify and QuickBooks Online so we know exactly what the transactions look like once they're synced. It is important to note that we're activating this new application from the end user or client's perspective. If you're an accounting professional and you want to activate a new application, you may need to log in with administrative access to be able to activate a new app to a company file. In order to add Knowify, we're going to click on the Apps button in the left navigation bar. Then we're going to search Knowify and click on Knowify for Contractors. Then we're going to click on Get App Now. And during the setup process, Knowify will ask you a set of questions that it requires in order to sync Knowify with QuickBooks and also understand how the two applications will talk to each other. For example, you need to map your construction revenue accounts with your QuickBooks chart of accounts. And you also need to map your materials accounts, your subcontractor accounts, and your labor accounts. Knowify will keep track of all those costs for you, and then it will post them into QuickBooks Online so you can track profitability by project in both Knowify and in QuickBooks. So let's start with a general overview. So when you first log into Knowify, you're going to see a left navigation bar. We're going to start with the dashboard. A dashboard will tell you all the active jobs and bids with their valuation that you have pending. Under contract jobs, you're going to see all the jobs that you have created as active jobs. In Time Tracker, you can simply just add your time entries for each of your employees and which jobs the time is allocated to. Under Purchases, you can actually create purchase orders or have Knowify automatically create the purchase orders for you when the jobs are created. Under Bills, you can create new bills and import bills from QuickBooks that are allocated or not to jobs. And in this module, you can actually choose which bills go to each job or leave them unallocated. Under Invoices, you're going to see all of the jobs that have outstanding invoices. And in Scheduling, you're going to be able to see your schedule of the jobs and schedule new ones. You can also track internal projects to make sure you stay on budget. On the top right, you will be able to click on Clients and see your entire client list. And under Vendors, you can see your entire vendor list. Both the client list and the vendor list sync with QuickBooks Online. So let's move on to contract jobs and let's create a job. We're going to click on Add New Contract Job. We're going to give it a name, Second Floor Remodel. And we're going to pick an existing client from our client list, or we can create a new one. Let's go ahead and pick XYZ client. Then Knowify will ask you, what type of job is this? And you're going to have three choices. You're going to have a fixed price job. You're going to have a fixed price with AIA billing and a cost plus job. In a nutshell, if you have priced the job without concerning with the specific line item details of the cost, you would use a fixed price job. If you're working with government or general contractors, you're probably going to need to do AIA billing, which basically shows the progress of each phase of the job and the percentage of completion as it pertains to the way you invoice. And then cost plus / other is for a more customized type of billing process. Let's go ahead and pick fixed price AIA billing, which is actually one of the most common for contractors. Then you will have 3 choices for job costing style. You're going to have a simple job costing style where basically you add all the materials, labor to the job without specifically tracking individual line items of it. Then you're going to have the advanced job costing, which allows you to job cost individual line items within the project. And then we're going to have the professional version, which actually requires you to create a budget for those items and then track the expenses to it. That last option is necessary if you need to pull a work in progress report. A work in progress report requires you to estimate your costs in the line item level in order for you to understand exactly what is the percentage of completion of each phase of the job. We'll go ahead and pick that one and click on Save Job. So now we're in the edit mode of the job itself. We're going to go ahead and create the first phase and click on Add Job Phase. We'll call this one Removal of Carpet. We'll estimate how much we'll spend in materials. Then we click on Enable Labor. And now we're going to estimate how much we're going to spend in labor. And then we click Enable Subcontractors if we're going to use a third party as part of that phase of the job. So let's say we're going to pay a subcontractor to throw away the old carpet that we're removing. So I'll put $250. Now we have a budgeted cost for that phase of the job of $950. At this point, we're not really concerned too much with the sales price. We're just planning for the cost components. I'll go ahead and click on Save Changes. And I'll click on Add Job Phase. On the second job phase, we'll call it New Floors. Then we'll estimate the materials cost, we'll estimate the labor. And let's say we don't have subcontractors, so I will not click on subcontractors for that one. Now here where it says labor, I can actually click where it says add role or resource, and I can specifically assign one team member that's configured in Notify so we can track this at the team member level. Then we can put their hours, and Notify will track based on the hourly cost our total cost. Go ahead and click on Save Changes. Notice in the top how your budget for the job is being calculated and is split off based on subcontractors, labor, or materials. Let's add one more phase and we'll call it Paint All Rooms. For materials, we'll estimate $2,500. For labor, we'll estimate $1,500. And let's say we're also going to get a subcontractor involved to throw away some of the debris, so we'll do $300. Under labor, we'll select the employee that we're assigning to the job. And under subcontractors, we can actually choose the specific subcontractor from our vendor list. And Notify will actually create a purchase order for that subcontractor. On the new subcontractor setup screen, you can actually upload any contracts, pictures, or any data that you want the contractor to see once we submit the information directly to the subcontractor from Notify. So we'll go ahead and click on Save. Now we can scroll up and see exactly the status of the job. Perfect. So now we got the job budgeted for just under $10,000. We will scroll all the way down and click on Switch to Active Mode. That means that we're calling this job as active and ready to go. Once the job is created, we can actually create a bid or the estimate to the customer. So we're going to click on Create Bid. You can actually choose whether you want your customer to see all the faces or disregard the faces themselves. We'll go ahead and leave the faces as part of our bidding process and we'll hit Continue. So here's where we enter the details of the job. So let's say we're estimating this job to be starting in November 1st. We're going to enter a flat rate for our carpet removal. We'll put there $1,500. For the new floors, instead of using a flat rate, we'll use a markup rate. So we'll mark this one up 20% and we'll mark this one up 30%. Perfect. And let's say for painting all the rooms, we'll enter a flat fee of $5,000 here. And effectively, we're using a combination between markup percentage or a dollar amount that we came up with ourselves. You're going to see the bid summary here in the bottom. And you have multiple output styles. So you can actually show the line items or hide the line items. Let me show you each one. So I'm going to click on display line items and click on preview. And this is where your customer can see the 3 faces and the sales price for each of the faces. I'm going to show you when we hide the subtotals per line item and click on preview, where your customer can still see the 3 faces, but they will only see one lump sum value. Then once we're done, we can click on send out for signature. We can customize the text that our customer is going to get via email. Click on send email. Your customer will receive an email with the proposal. They can view it in PDF format. They can print it, sign it, send it to you manually, or they can click on a built-in link where they can electronically sign the approval of the project. So they can click on accept and sign, type their name, click on submit e-signature. Then once you get back into Knowify, you will see that job as active. Next thing we're going to do some time tracking. So I'm going to click on time tracker. I'm going to click on enter time. I'm going to click on new activity, select the job, and select the specific phase inside the job, and enter the number of hours spent on the job. Click on save and submit. Then I'm going to click on review time. We'll get a bird's eye view of all of our employees, how many hours they worked on each project, and accumulated cost based on the time period of the time tracking that we're reviewing. Okay, we're going to move on to purchases. And you will see all the purchase orders that were automatically created from Knowify based on how we planned the cost of each of the projects. We can also create a new purchase order from scratch simply by selecting the vendor's name, the dollar amount, the job, and click on verify and submit. We can click on view history and see all of our open purchase orders, the dollar amounts, the PO number, the vendor name, and the items associated with it. We can actually click on any of these purchase orders and click on send email to subcontractor, type the subcontractor's name, click on send email, and your subcontractor will receive that purchase order. On the next step, we can click on manage active purchase orders, select any purchase order that we have received the bill for, click on create bill for PO, and the new bill with accounts payable will automatically be created for you. Just enter the vendor's invoice number and click on verify and submit. You can at that point select whether or not you want that bill to go into QuickBooks and then click on submit. If you click on manage bills, you will see all of the open bills, dollar amounts, subcontractor name, and the jobs that they belong to. You can mark any of these bills paid simply by clicking on record payment, and you can choose whether or not this bill has already been marked paid from QuickBooks, or if you're going to mark it paid from Knowify and send that payment information into QuickBooks. Then we click on record payment, and the bill comes out of our managed bills report. Now let's click on invoices, and we get to see all of our outstanding invoices. To create an invoice, we're going to click on add the new invoice, select the job, and then in the invoice, we can pick how much we want to invoice from each phase of the job. So we can pick and choose depending on the conditions of the job. Once we select how much we want to invoice, we click on preview PDF, and we get what is best known as an AIA billing document that actually contains a full schedule of all the phases, job completed to date, and how much is being invoiced in this specific application of payment. Of course, the type of job that you will be doing and the billing style will affect how that invoice or application of payment looks like. If you were to pick some of the simpler job costing and billing methods, those invoices will look more similar to a QuickBooks invoice. We'll go ahead and click on Verify and Finalize and click on Confirm. Every invoice will give you a summary schedule of your billings, the values, and the amount of the payment that is due on that specific payment schedule. You can email it to your client at that point. You can also receive payments straight from this screen. So we can click on Record Payments. We can select the dollar amount that we're receiving a payment for. We can choose whether or not this payment has already been recorded in QuickBooks. And if that's the case, there's no need to record it in Notify because QuickBooks will send that payment information in the next sync. Otherwise, if we're recording the payment for the first time inside Notify, we have to make sure to click Send to QuickBooks and click on Record Payment. Now let's move on to scheduling. In the scheduling screen, you can see which jobs have been scheduled for which dates. You can also click on Add New Allocation, select the job, select the date and the time, click on Add New Allocation, and you will see that resource scheduled. You can also look at the scheduling by resource. So we're going to click on Resource Day, and we're going to add allocation for that same resource or that same employee to work on a different job. And click on Add New Allocation. Finally, let's look at what the Notify transactions look like inside QuickBooks Online. I'm going to click on QuickBooks. I'm going to click in the Recent Transactions button and look at all the transactions that were created. I'm going to click on this invoice here. And this invoice was created inside Notify. Information about percentage of completion, item name, and description will all flow through the sync. Any payments that were received in Notify will translate over to QuickBooks. You can change any of the details in the payment in the QuickBooks site if you want, but normally if you're receiving the payments in Notify, all the information that you need should be coming in through the sync. One of the real wonderful features is you can actually create a bill inside of QuickBooks. So I'm going to select a vendor here, and I'm going to select any of these categories, dollar amount, and select a specific customer. If I do this on the next Notify sync, the bill will come up as an unallocated bill that then you can allocate to a specific job. So if I click on bills, I can see it right here. This was the bill that was created inside QuickBooks Online. I can click on that bill and click on Allocate to Job, and I can select a specific job pertaining to that bill and then click on Save. So you actually get the full flexibility of being able to create certain transactions in Notify to sync into QuickBooks and certain transactions into QuickBooks to sync into Notify. In summary, who is Notify for? Any construction or contractor type of business will benefit from Notify greatly. You'll be able to create jobs, estimate those costs, track purchase orders for the vendors associated with those costs, track time and estimate labor costs for that job, track open invoices and payments, open bills and payments, schedule your jobs and resources, and also track internal jobs that don't have revenue associated with it, but you want to use the same control mechanism to budget and keep expenses in track. Now, to compare the two apps, Notify and Jobber, it's a little bit difficult because Notify is geared towards a type of business that focuses a great deal on line item expense budgeting and tracking, whereas Jobber focuses a lot more in the logistics and scheduling, plus is geared more towards on-site, residential, and commercial type of service. In a nutshell, if you are in a business that's on the field service industry, whether it's construction or on-site services, you will benefit greatly from adding any of these two apps into QuickBooks Online. Some of the pain points that these apps solve is scheduling and resource planning, coding and estimating jobs, time tracking and job costing, and syncing customer and vendor information with QuickBooks in real time.